Good morning and welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Dr. Crocker. She's with the University of Kentucky. She's a forest health extension specialist there.
And so today we're going to be talking about winter creeper. And you might be familiar with winter creeper as a ground cover in the landscape setting. And a lot of people like it there because it's evergreen. It's got that nice green foliage all year round. But the downside is that it is invasive. So it won't stay put in your yard. It spreads out from there and it can totally take over in a lot of different natural areas. In addition, it can also take over in your yard. And so, there's a reason why people introduced it from Asia and have planted it broadly, but it was a little too much of a good thing with those invasive plants.
So are we seeing issues with winter creeper in our forests?
Definitely. So what winter creeper can do is it can grow in different ways. So mostly when people think of it in the landscape, they think of it as a ground cover. And it can do that in forests as well, where it's growing in this dense blanket that basically carpets everything else. So you're not going to get your spring ephemerals. You're not going to get your little trees that grow into big trees of the future if all you have is this dense blanket of winter creeper. It can also grow as kind of a small shrub, especially if it's growing over something, so a fence or a log or something like that. And then it can grow as a vine up a tree. And you might have seen trees like this that are just completely covered with winter creeper at the top part. And that has a few different problems associated with it. Not only can it kind of overtop those trees and be a problem that way, but it can also weigh them down. So if you think of a major wind event, fortunately, if those happen in the winter time, our trees don't have leaves and they're a little bit protected from that. But if it happens in the wintertime and it's completely covered with winter creeper, that's a much more hazardous situation in terms of the wind impacting it. So there's, in all of those phases, different ways that they can cause problems, both in your landscape as well as in natural areas. And especially in those natural areas, seeing more and more of it, it can colonize in areas that are pretty sunny, as well as those that are more shaded. Interesting thing about winter creeper is that when it's carpeting the ground and growing that way, it'll send out shoots and it can continue growing and spreading, but it's never going to produce flowers that produce seeds. The only time it does that is when it's growing up. And so when it's growing up, that's when it produces flowers. Those will mature into berries that, of course, birds like to eat and will spread it. So one of the first recommendations that I would have to folks that are dealing with winter creeper is to cut those vines out of their trees, prevent them from producing fruit that will then become new winter creeper infestations everywhere. And you don't actually have to pull those vines out of your tree. You can just take a chunk of that vine out at the bottom of it where it's accessible to you, maybe cut about an inch out of that vine. Sometimes those vines can get pretty thick. Winter creeper can get really large at the base, so you can cut that, just a little segment of it out, making sure not to nick up the tree while you're doing that. Winter creeper is evergreen, so that's one good thing about it that you can use to distinguish it from other things. It's going to have leaves in the winter as well. Its leaves are also kind of this waxy green, really thick leaves. The green is darker on the upper side than on the underside, kind of a lighter color. It has these prominent white veins on it. It is woody, so it's got a real kind of a woody feel to stems and shoots. You can pull it out for those smaller infestations, and in fact, you can, if you've got a small patch, you can cover it with a tarp for a few seasons and kill it that way. But that doesn't maybe look as nice depending on where that's located. But for those bigger expanses of that ground cover, you can have a lot of success with a foliar herbicide application, but because it's got those waxy leaves, it's important to keep in mind that you may want to use a surfactant or seed oil mixed in with that in order for it to be effective. But as with all herbicides, you also really want to read that label and follow it. Not only is that the best way for you to have success and be safe, but the label is the law.
If you have questions, make sure to contact your local extension office. Thanks for watching and have a great day.